Imagine you could travel back in time and breathe the hot, dry air of Giza 4,500 years ago, when the horizon was not dominated by weathered ruins, but by white limestone colossi that shimmered like jewels under the relentless sun. The sound that dominates the air is not the silence of the desert, but the constant roar of tens of thousands of men moving mountains. Between the creaking of hemp ropes and the impact of copper chisels, there is a scent that defines this era, an aroma that travels with the wind and feeds the largest construction site in human history, the smell of fresh bread and fermented beer. We often imagine the pyramid builders as slaves subjected to whips and misery, but modern science and the archaeology of the sands reveal a much more fascinating and complex reality. Those men and women were not moved only by faith or fear, but by a logistical feeding machine as monumental as the stones they raised. To understand what was on the plate of an Egyptian worker is to understand the fuel of a civilization that defied time. If you wish to continue uncovering the greatest mysteries of antiquity and the stories that school books don't tell, join our journey by subscribing now so you don't miss any chapter of our human history. To understand the diet of the pyramid era, we must look at the Nile River as the beating heart of a living organism. When the waters rose and flooded the banks, they deposited black silt, a natural fertilizer that transformed the desert into an infinite orchard. For the breakfast of a peasant or a master builder, bread was the absolute foundation of everything. It was not the light, airy bread we know today, but a dense bread made from a primitive wheat called emmer, often containing traces of sand and grit from stone querns, which ended up wearing down the Egyptians' teeth to the root over the years. Alongside the bread, beer. But forget the cold, bubbly drink of modern days. Egyptian beer was a thick, cloudy soup, rich in nutrients and low in alcohol, serving as both hydration and a source of vital calories to endure the superhuman physical effort of dragging 2-ton blocks. In the shadows of the pyramids under construction, there existed a true city of workers, a planned urban center where food logistics were treated as a state priority. Recent excavations in the workers' village have revealed something surprising. Thousands of bones from cattle, sheep, and goats. This shatters the myth of a subsistence diet. Elite workers, artisans, and even stone haulers received meat rations regularly, something that was a luxury in almost any other part of the ancient world. Pharaoh Khufu was not just building a tomb, he was maintaining a motivated and well-nourished workforce. Imagine the end of an exhausting day, the sun setting behind the Great Pyramid, and the workers gathering around large tables, sharing roasted meat, sweet onions, leeks, and spicy radishes that cleansed the palate and strengthened the body against disease. Vegetables were abundant. Egypt was a verdant garden surrounded by an ocean of sand. Lettuce, which for them was a symbol of fertility, crunchy cucumbers, and large quantities of legumes like lentils and chickpeas made up daily meals. There was no refined sugar, so the palate was sweetened by nature. Fleshy dates, dried figs, and juicy grapes were the delicacies that brought quick energy for manual labor. Honey was liquid gold, a luxury item saved for the elites or for special moments, used in both cooking and medicine, to treat wounds opened by accidents on the construction site. For the average Egyptian, fat came from linseed oil or animal fat, ensuring the body had reserves for the cold winter mornings in the desert. An Egyptian's table in the Fourth Dynasty was a reflection of their connection to the gods. Every food had a spiritual meaning. Bread was not just sustenance, it was an offering. Fish, abundant in the Nile, was consumed in large quantities, dried in the sun, or salted for preservation. Although during certain periods and for certain priestly classes, some types of fish were considered impure. Imagine the visual contrast. On one side, the sterile and eternal whiteness of the pyramid rising toward the sky. On the other, the smoke from communal kitchens, the smell of grilled fish, and the sound of ceramic pots being washed in the canal waters. It was a wartime operation to feed about 20,000 people daily, requiring a system of taxes and food redistribution that worked with the precision of a sundial. The decline of Egypt and the end of the era of the Great Pyramids came not only from invasions or revolts, but often from the failure of this very food logistics. When the Nile stopped rising, hunger set in, And the bread that built monuments became the reason for social collapses. Eating in ancient Egypt was an act of communion with the land and with the state. Every bite of emmer bread was an investment in the pharaoh's eternity. As we look at those structures today, we don't just see stone. We see the result of millions of meals, liters of beer, and a human organization that understood before all others that to touch the heavens, it was first necessary to ensure that man had firm feet and a full stomach. At the end of this journey through the flavors of history, we realize that despite the millennia that separate us, the search for sustenance and the ambition to leave a legacy remain the forces that move humanity. What has changed is not our hunger, but the scale of our dreams. If you felt transported to the sands of Giza and want to continue exploring the secrets of the civilizations that shaped our world, your presence here is fundamental. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to ensure that the voices of the past continue to echo in your present. What other civilization would you like to visit through the senses? The past is alive, and we are just beginning to taste it.